Well, it's because I believe in progress. This is not something that's inevitable. Progress is not just inevitable, which is why it's a name for a political philosophy. It's something we're trying to do, right? I don't think that, you know, education, you do learn things naturally in your life, but actually educating yourself is not something that happens automatically. If you're in a political group called the Pro Education League, it's because you want to consistently do the work, right? So, do we inevitably have progress? I mean, we can have a philosophical discussion about that. Entropy and the idea of entropy at every level obviously decays whatever you have, deprogresses. Living creatures, of course, are all about pumping entropy, so, maybe living creatures do tend to have progress. But it doesn't automatically happen, so what is progress? And in what sense is it necessary to say that your political ideals involve progress? Well, one, not everybody believes in progress. There are people that don't advocate it. There's people that think it was the good old days. My wife made that mug. She's a great potter. There's people that don't believe in progress. They believe in the good old days, and things are, right up to the level of there was a Garden of Eden, and things are all downhill since then. There's people that don't believe in progress because it'd be nice, but it's just not like Buddhism, where things are in a cycle. Of course, politically, a Buddhist can still believe in progress. They're just saying, well, in the grand scheme of history, things are going to come back around. But this can also guide you against progress, where if things are good enough, just keep them here, because inevitably they're going to get worse, and if they're good enough, don't play with it. The fact is, not everybody supports progress. Now, I support progress in the following way. Now, we have the word progressive, meaning all these liberal things, but you have to remember, the Republicans were progressive. The Whigs were progressives. Now, this is a party that got split up, that had a fatal division on the question of slavery and should new states be allowed to be slave states. So I don't think you'd call them super liberal. But they were progressive, not in this liberal sense, though there's an overlap that we think, but literally technological progress in our infrastructure, right? Let's make schools. Why? Because we're nice? No, because out west the kids are being growing up savages. We need public schools. This is the Whigs. And, and basically infrastructure in general. Of course, that was a different era, and right now we might think of infrastructure differently. When there used to be a lot of company towns. My family, my parents' generation and my grandparents, lived in a company town of Valsetz, Oregon, lumber town. And, in these kinds of towns, the owners of the businesses, the company, they built a whole town. They built in all the indoor plumbing and stuff. Now, is that progress? Yeah, if you were living in a lumber camp and you couldn't even have your family there, that's progress. And these are all under the umbrella of progress that I support. So it's technological progress of the kind that helps life be better, meaning what? Progress can be towards anything, right? Well, that's where the liberty comes back in. Ultimately, it's progress towards liberty. And the variable that allows all different kinds of things to be counted as progress is the individual's liberty to prefer one thing over another. On the other hand, it's not some esoteric, incalculable idea. You can measure, just like with liberty, you can measure what you consider progress through a consequentialist mechanism. So progressive libertarianism is inherently consequentialist. So, for example, what's going to count as progress? Well, we can have all these philosophical discussions about it, just like we can with liberty, but we're going to be able to invent measurements. like, I would say progress is when you reduce the child mortality, when you reduce infant and mother fatality during birth, to reduce disease, when you reduce deaths. So, for example, it's progress to reduce the deaths from automobile accidents. However, I combine the idea with liberty because you could reduce, our fatalities from automobile accidents by prohibiting automobiles. But that would harm liberty. In progressive libertarianism, you have a consequentialist philosophy that's balanced, right? Because it can't be just a single individual's liberty. You can't say, well, this guy wants to be able to fart in the other people's face at a theater, because that interferes with another person's liberty, right? Now, I'll make another video about this pretty much bogus distinction of positive and negative liberty and stuff, but there's something to it. But basically, besides positive and negative numbers, which relies on creating a baseline, which to mean datuming, which is to put your zero level, which you can move in coordinate systems. You can move where zero is counted from. So positive and negative numbers are a little arbitrary, right? Because it depends where zero is. But either way, wherever you put zero, you can measure certain aspects of liberty, and therefore also define what you want to achieve and set your measurements for progress as well, right? And yeah, there's an element of creativity of, hey, we want to go to the moon. Yeah, well, if everybody wants to go to the moon, then you could pool your money and go to the moon, right? Nobody should necessarily stop you unless it interferes with their liberty. Now, the small bit I'll say about liberty is that with liberty, obviously all actions are that you might want to do are under this umbrella of liberty, but it becomes, complicated when you take a novel and all of the kinds of things an imaginary character in a novel might want to accomplish, and that's their liberty. You get into a lot of the real world conflicts about what constitutes an infraction on somebody else's liberty at that point, right? So the metaphor, the epitome that we use for in progressive libertarianism for liberty, the idea, the metaphor, when we're thinking about liberty as a thing in itself, right, separate from what do you want to use your liberty for, what is liberty, is the ability to move around, the ability to go from here and there. The person that is locked in a cage in a prison has less liberty than the person that is not locked in the cage in the prison, but locked into the prison. And that person has less liberty than the person that can leave the prison. That has less liberty than the person that doesn't have to go back to the prison. Like, literally, where are you allowed to go? And then measurements of how far can you get? How fast can you get there? And it's important to remember that in progressive libertarianism, there is a balance, because you're not maximizing one person's liberty so that Elon Musk with billions of dollars can do whatever he wants. A libertarian is interested in optimizing everybody's liberty so that they're not interfering with somebody else's liberty. It's not a philosophy of, I can do whatever I want, fuck all y'all. No, it's an idea that every individual, and possibly even animals, and it could be extended, we could discuss how far you would want to extend it, should have sort of the most liberty they can have, where, no, they're not allowed to go fart in other people's face in a theater. So, for example, with the geographic or personal locomotion example, liberty being modeled as, are you allowed to leave your room? How far where can you go? Your freedom of motion with sort of what you'd call a geographic or even geometric or model for liberty. You have the idea, well, but this is my house, so the point at which your liberty to move everywhere means you can come in to my house without my permission. That infringes on, my liberty to go wherever I want, because then you're in there interfering. You can put a poster up in your office, but you can't come into my office and start putting posters up and taking them down. And there's a very easy to even mathematically calculate sort of interplay between everybody's liberty. So with progressive libertarianism, you're automatically not talking about, the Eddie Izzard joke about people want the freedom to put babies on spikes. No. Your liberty is naturally in balance with the society. This is a political philosophy. We're saying, what do we do as a society? And so maximum liberty is really the optimized liberty where people are not infracting on another person's liberty. And it raises questions like when you're talking about taxation, and any, what kind of infrastructure should you have? Well, public roads obviously increase people's liberty, right? Because you could just take your feet and walk wherever, walk all over. If all the property is private and all the roads are toll, well, you can't. You have to have the money. And then you only have the liberty if you've got the money to pay the tolls. Now, if it's all toll roads, but everybody has the money to go on all the roads they want, then there's liberty again. So there's multiple solutions to the concept of having a progressive libertarian situation where it's measured consequentially, where you actually have the liberty, right? You could have toll roads if everybody has enough money to get on the roads, or you could have free roads and everybody has feet. Right? So I support the free road idea because everybody has feet. Now, as we get into the kinds of political ideologies of progressive libertarians, we're going to find that the modern concepts of progressive, like, hey, let's have nationalized health care, and libertarian, like, hey, let's not have laws on what people can do. Let's base a non-aggression principle-oriented idea of what people can go ahead and do. Have piercings. Walk around town nude. Have no borders. Now, can we have no borders if that means somebody else is infringed upon, like the border at the edge of your house? No. So we're going to have to figure out a border kind of idea where I have the liberty to put up my own posters and you can't come take them down. And, the lovely thing is that it all works out fantastically with, like, almost no problems whatsoever. No internal conflicts. So, let's look at the comments here before I leave. J. Troy Doe are you a bot? Or do you just hang around? You always are like, hello, first in line. Hello, do you have a bot that says, I don't understand? And then that's like all you say. But that's fine. Hello. Stargazer. It's not that complicated. Well, it depends on what it means. Stargazer. It's capitalism versus socialism. You either get it or you don't. Okay. Hello, Faith Twiddlestar Twiddle. Tinfoil Hatter. Oh, greetings, Tinfoil Hatter. All right, well, that's this episode. And this is good. So now I can go on to episode 2, where perhaps I'll deal with my dear fan, Curas, because it's a show. Curas is a long time conversant, but now that this is a show, he commented in my comments. That makes Curas, you're a fan. You're a fan of mine. Congratulations. And I'm going to talk about your negative thing more. I did a little in this video. I couldn't resist, but all right, cheers.